What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another recipe video on the channel, and today we are going to be making a chicken curry. And of course, I did say in the last recipe video I'm going to show you guys the spices I use and the mix. So we're just going to quickly go through it. I have my one onion that's already been sliced. I got my 2 tomatoes, which we'll get to after the chicken. So this is what we are basically using in this curry. So over here we have garam masala, we have some turmeric, we have some cloves, we have chicken tikka masala, we have ginger and garlic masala, we have some jeera seeds, we have some mustard seeds, Kashmiri hot masala, we got mixed masala, we got Durban masala, some biryani masala, and chicken masala. So all of that is basically going to go into this chicken, and everything you just saw now is what I have in my spice mix. It's a 1-to-1 ratio, 200 grams of each and every spice just mixed up, and basically that is it. So yeah, let's get to this. Let us start. And I just wanted to show you the tomatoes and the chicken, and then we will go on to getting the curry started. So we started our tomatoes real quick. My tomatoes are all frozen, so I just put them in hot water for about 5 minutes, and you can see they're nice and soft. So what I'm going to do is just make an incision so all that water can come out of the tomato before we end up grating it or smoothing it out. And there you can see how much water has come out of those tomatoes. Now what I am going to use is my favorite contraption. I'm going to take this, I'm going to just open it up, and I'm going to take my tomatoes with the skin. I'm just going to throw it in there. That's how that is. Okay, and you can see that's all the water that has come out of the tomatoes from it being frozen, which we are going to keep. And we're just going to put this on. I'm going to quickly grind them. Cool, and there we go, that is done. Just gonna take this blade out, and our tomatoes are nicely grated and ready for the curry. So that's gonna go in like that. And to these tomatoes we're going to add 2 teaspoons of sugar, because I used 2 tomatoes, so I usually do a teaspoon per tomato as always. Okay, so now that that's done, just gonna clean up the excess. Just so it's ready for our chicken. Okay, cool. So now the chicken, it's already defrosted. And we're gonna use 2 chicken breasts. You can see the size of them as well. I would say this is about large chicken breasts, as you can see. So what we're going to do is we're just going to slice it in the middle like that, and we're just going to cube them. Nice, not too small, but you want nice medium-sized cubes. If you make it too small, it is going to get shredded in the curry. So we want nice decent chunks of it. And there you go, that's your chicken. So now, with the chicken, I'm just getting a spoon real quick. We're gonna take our chicken and we're gonna put it all into this bowl, and this is where we're gonna mix it now for the marinades, okay? So I like to make mine a dry mix. So all those spices I showed you is basically what's in here. So we're gonna go with about 3 or 4 of this. And there you have it. If you want it more spicier, go for about 7 to 8 spoons. Then we are gonna come with some ginger and garlic. I'm gonna just go with a teaspoon of that. And then the secret ingredient, some white wine vinegar. This is just gonna make it more tender, and it's also gonna give it a nicer taste. I just go in one circle like that. And then of course the most important thing, which you can't forget, salt. So I'm gonna just take a tablespoon of salt and put it in there. And now we are just going to mix this up, and this smells amazing. You can use your hands to mix it. I would suggest wearing gloves, or else you're going to stain your nails for quite a few days trying to clean them doing this. And you can see that vinegar is also binding it to the chicken. So exactly the same on what we did with the lamb. This is basically what I did with the lamb that you didn't see. And you can see it's all binded really nice. So now that that is done, we got our onions, we got our tomatoes, which I'm going to put the sugar in. So as I said, 2 teaspoons of sugar for your tomatoes, and that is it. That is the prep. Now the potatoes are already on boil. I just peeled them and I cut them in half. They've been on boil for the last 30 minutes. So yeah, let's get to the pot and let's start cooking this beauty. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. So we got the pot, we got it on medium heat. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna throw in some oil to cover a little bit. So I just put oil to cover it. And then from that, we're gonna let that just get a bit hot. And of course, we're gonna put some butter as well, as always. So we're gonna go ahead and put a teaspoon of butter. And that's gonna make the onions real nice and creamy, and also give it a nice caramelization. So, as you know, we always put a cinnamon stick as well before you add the onions, just to get that nice flavor onto the oil and butter. You can use a whole cinnamon stick if you want. It doesn't really matter. And we're gonna put some jeera, mustard seeds, and coriander seeds like I showed in the beginning. Just a little bit. You don't want too much, because remember, these will stay with that hard texture, so it's going to give you a bit of crunch. It's going to give you all of those type of stuff. So we're just going to wait for that to heat up, and once you start seeing the bubbles, then we are going to throw in our onions. So I'll just show you now. The potatoes over here are just busy boiling. And they look like they are almost done, in which I will take them out. Okay, cool. So you can see it is starting You can see the bubbles is starting over there. So we're just gonna mix this a little bit. Let that butter and oil emulsify with the cinnamon stick and all the seeds. And once it starts making that searing sound, you're gonna throw in your onions. And just break apart the onions as well, so they don't stay in a clump. There you go. We're just gonna leave that and we're gonna cook. Ooh, I almost knocked the camera. We're gonna cook that until translucent. And to the onions, we're gonna add some salt. Okay, I got all my prep on the side over here, ready for this. So we're just gonna bring that onions up. Again, this is gonna be an uncut video, so you'll see it from start to finish, no edits, nothing. Okay, my potatoes are nice and soft, so I'm just gonna put them in a colander and let them sit there until we need them. Okay, now that the potatoes are put in a colander, I'm going to put some rice on. As always, I'm not going to show you the rice and the potatoes. It is pretty straightforward. I will show you the rice. I'm going to use a cup of rice like this. Basically fill it to the top and throw it in the water. And I'll just add some turmeric to it. And then I will add some frozen mixed veg to it. I'm going to just put some salt in the water for the rice. You do not want your rice to be bland. And now I can start to smell the cinnamon stick and all of those seeds in there as well. It's giving it a nice aroma. Remember, we're not going to leave the cinnamon stick in. Before we throw in the meat, we're going to take it out. Because if you keep it in, it will break apart and it gets softer and softer. And eventually you're going to have pieces of a cinnamon stick and it's not going to be nice to eat. I'm going to just put the extractor on a low speed. You can see those onions are starting to get to that nice translucent stage. You can see the nice caramelization that is starting to happen on the onions as well. Okay, and when I touch the stick now, you can see how it is bending. That is telling you that it's time to come out now. You do not want this in longer, this will start to break apart. Okay, we're just gonna give the onions about 1 more minute and then we'll throw in the chicken. Okay, cool. The onions are at that stage. So now we are going to go ahead and throw in our chicken. Make sure you get all of the spices. You don't leave any behind. And now this is going to change into that beautiful red color once the chicken starts to get that sear and the spices start to cook. You can now see those spices are starting to go up onto the onions as well. What you want. It is imperative you cook out the spices. If you don't cook out the spices, you're going to have a powdery curry at the end. And I always suggest use a non-stick or a cast iron when making curries with a lot of spices, mainly because if we were to use a stainless steel, this would be catching right now at the bottom of that stainless steel, and those parts where it's catch is just going to get darker and darker and darker, and eventually give it a burnt taste. And a lot think because it's chicken, you just need to sear it and then that's it. That's not the case. If you're gonna just cook the chicken quickly and then throw in everything else, your chicken's gonna be tough at the end. You want it to be tender, just like any other meat that goes into a curry. So it's important you get that sear, but you also cook it until it's at least fully cooked or just about there, and that's when you start adding your tomatoes. And once it starts cooking in all these liquids, that's when it will get softer and softer and softer. You can already see pieces like this is starting to fall apart. That's when you know you are almost there when to throw in your tomatoes. Once you see them starting to fall apart or break apart, you can see the spices are starting to get that nice dark color that's telling you you are cooking it out. You can see half of the onions have already gone. They've melted away into the chicken and the spice. The rest of them will melt once we put the liquid in. I'm just going to show you. I throw in frozen veg to boil with my rice. I just use your generic, any frozen veg, doesn't matter what brand. Just buy the no-name brands as they're cheaper. It's the same veg. You're basically just gonna pay more for the brand in the end if you buy your branded veg. And you can see the chicken has a nice red color, no food coloring needed. You can see all that spices is now on the chicken itself. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add our tomatoes in. So again, this is 2 tomatoes with 2 teaspoons of sugar. Just going to let that come up to heat. the tomatoes is basically going to form your gravy. Now if you like a dry curry, you could just put the tomatoes in, cook it out, and this would be it. But we are still going to add some water to this, because that water is going to give us a nice thin gravy, which I want. So what I do is I always fill with water, and that's why I put my spoon in every time we're stirring. All that spices and stuff is going to go back into that water, and at the end it's going to go back into the curry. Okay, extract is going to full speed. So what you're going to do is just let it cook out a little bit, and then you're going to take a spoon and start tasting for your salt. Nothing worse than a bland curry. Move the camera up a bit so it's away from the steam. Well, as far as I can get it from the steam, it's not really doing that much. Okay, this is the best I can do with the steam. See, it's getting thicker and thicker slowly. This is where we start to get our spoon and do tastes. Salt is perfect, spice is perfect, got a nice kick to it. Now we're just going to cook this out, and then we're going to add our water and potatoes and let that simmer. This should take another minute and then we're good to add our water. Chicken is nice and soft, and if you eat the chicken on its own, it has that distinct flavor from the sear, so that's what you want. And you can see how nice and thick it has become now. And this is how most would eat their curries, just like this, but we're gonna add some water just so we can get a nice gravy out of it. I'm gonna cook up that water with it. Now with that, we're going to also add our potatoes, which were chilling in the colander all this time. We're just going to take it, and the potatoes, while this boils again, it's going to absorb all that flavor. I used 5 potatoes. You can use as many potatoes as you want, doesn't really matter. As always, we like extra potatoes, and you can see I broke some just so they're like small pieces, because they will melt into that gravy and just make it more thicker. This is also the part where you need to be careful, because if you mix a bit too hard with your spoon, you're going to break those big potatoes. So where your small potatoes are, mix aggressively, but where your big ones are, go as slow and as gentle as possible. You can also just move the pot like this. And yeah, we're basically now gonna just wait for it to get rid of some of that water, and we're good to go. gonna do another taste test. Just gonna show you guys, this is the rice. The rice is ready with the turmeric and mixed veg. And you can see how nice and red that chicken is, and the potatoes are starting to take on the spices as well. It's what you want. And it's almost ready. I say another 5 to 10 minutes and we're all good. Almost there. it's getting nice and thick. Just gonna do this. Okay, cool. And I'm gonna give you guys a close-up. And here you go, guys. The chicken curry in its glory. You can see how nice and thick that gravy is. You got your potatoes, your chicken perfectly cooked, all soft, tender. So yeah, this has been the full recipe for the chicken curry, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, do leave a like, do subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.